As we continue our journey through the forgotten corridors of ancient history, we encounter yet another enigma, one that takes us deep into the desolate heart of the Judean desert. Here, beneath sun-scorched cliffs and windswept plateaus, lies a collection of ancient scrolls unlike any other, written in a mysterious script and hidden away for millennia. These fragile documents have puzzled scholars, theologians, and historians alike. They are known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, and though they have been studied for decades, they continue to guard their secrets with a silence that feels almost sacred. Discovered in the mid-20th century, these ancient texts are considered among the most significant archaeological finds in human history. And yet, for every question they answer, they seem to raise two more. Who wrote them? Why were they hidden away in the caves near the Dead Sea? And do they contain forgotten knowledge, fragments of belief or wisdom, that might change the way we understand not just religion, but the very shape of the ancient world? The story begins in 1947, in the arid desert landscape of what is now the West Bank. A young Bedouin shepherd, searching for a stray goat, wandered into a narrow cave nestled within the cliffs near the crumbling ruins of Qumran. Inside, he found a series of tall clay jars, some sealed, others broken, and within them, to his astonishment, were tightly wrapped scrolls of parchment and linen. Not realizing the magnitude of what he had found, the shepherd and his companions sold several scrolls to local antiquities dealers. It was only when scholars examined the texts that the true nature of the discovery began to unfold. These were manuscripts dating back over 2,000 years, possibly the oldest surviving biblical writings ever found. The academic world was shaken. Over the next decade, archaeologists descended upon Qumran, determined to uncover more. Their excavations revealed a total of 11 caves, each containing scrolls or fragments, some remarkably preserved, others reduced to thousands of brittle shards. In total, nearly 1,000 distinct texts were recovered, written primarily in Hebrew, but also in Aramaic and Greek. Some were inscribed on parchment or papyrus, while a few were etched into thin sheets of copper. The diversity in materials and languages only deepened the sense of mystery surrounding them. What made the Dead Sea Scrolls so extraordinary was not just their age, but their content. Many of the texts included versions of books from the Hebrew Bible, some strikingly similar to modern versions, others with subtle but provocative differences. Still others were entirely unfamiliar. Apocalyptic visions, cryptic prophecies, and detailed descriptions of religious rituals that had long since vanished from Jewish tradition. There were writings that spoke of divine messengers, cosmic battles, and a coming messianic figure, visions that blurred the line between theology and mysticism. Among the theories surrounding the scrolls, one of the most enduring is that they were authored by the Essenes, a reclusive Jewish sect that lived in isolation near Qumran. The Essenes were known for their austere lifestyle, strict religious codes, and belief in an imminent apocalypse. Many scholars believe that, as tensions in Judea escalated under Roman occupation, the Essenes sought to preserve their sacred texts by hiding them in the surrounding caves, an act of desperation and devotion, hoping one day to return for them. If that was their intention, they never did. The scrolls remained untouched for nearly 2 millennia, sleeping beneath layers of dust and stone. But not all scholars agree with this theory. Some propose that the scrolls originated from multiple sources, perhaps even including texts from the Great Temple in Jerusalem, smuggled out before its destruction by the Romans in 70 CE. Others suggest that the scrolls represent a broader theological landscape, a tapestry of competing Jewish beliefs in the final centuries before and after the time of Christ. The lack of conclusive evidence means that the origins of the scrolls remain, like so much else about them, an open question. Yet beyond debates of authorship and provenance lies something far more compelling: the content of the scrolls themselves. Buried among familiar biblical passages are writings that speak of cosmic struggles between the forces of light and darkness, of angelic hosts clashing in unseen realms, and of prophetic figures who would lead the righteous in the final days. These are not merely religious teachings. They are visions, dreams, and warnings preserved against the erosion of time. One of the most unusual and beguiling discoveries in the collection is the Copper Scroll. Unlike the others, it was not written on parchment or papyrus, but inscribed, line by painstaking line, onto thin sheets of metal. Its content is unlike anything else found among the scrolls. It reads like a treasure map. The text lists dozens of secret locations where vast quantities of gold and silver are supposedly buried, hidden away in the wilderness of Judea. Some believe this treasure belonged to the Second Temple in Jerusalem, concealed before its destruction by Roman forces. Others think it may be allegorical, a metaphor for spiritual wealth. Despite numerous expeditions inspired by its clues, no treasure has ever been found. What makes the Dead Sea Scrolls so enduring, so magnetic, is the space they occupy between the tangible and the unknowable. They are undeniably real, written by human hands, on materials we can date and touch, but they carry with them the shadows of something larger. They hint at a forgotten chapter in the spiritual history of the world, a moment when ancient beliefs intertwined with mysticism, when warnings were written in secrecy, and when entire worldviews may have been hidden in caves to survive an uncertain future. Even now, the scrolls continue to offer surprises. In 2021, for the first time in over half a century, archaeologists uncovered new fragments of biblical texts in a cave near Qumran, proof that the desert still holds its secrets and that the story of the scrolls is not yet finished. As technology advances and as scholars return to these texts with fresh eyes and deeper context, new revelations may still await, buried in lines of faded ink or etched into ancient metal. For now, the Dead Sea Scrolls remain one of the most captivating and mysterious windows into the past ever discovered. They offer a glimpse into a lost world, a world of prophets, scribes, messianic dreams, and spiritual longing. A world that once was, and perhaps, in some sense, still is. And like so many of history's most enduring riddles, for every scroll that brings us closer to truth, another whispers of mysteries still beyond our grasp. The search for lost knowledge, it seems, is never truly over. We may never fully grasp the vastness of what ancient secrets have been erased by time. What truths were swallowed by war? What rituals faded into silence? Or what knowledge crumbled into dust before it could ever be passed on? But every so often, something unexpected survives. An object, unassuming yet strangely evocative, emerges from the earth, a relic that refuses to be explained. These enigmatic fragments from the past pose questions we are not equipped to answer, urging us to ask, what were they for? Who created them? And why, after all this time, do they still exist? One such mystery lies scattered across the lands once ruled by the Roman Empire. They are small, intricate, and perplexing. Artifacts that defy classification and resist understanding. Known today as the Roman Dodecahedrons, these 12-sided hollow metal objects, crafted nearly 2,000 years ago, have confounded archaeologists, historians, and researchers for centuries. Found in fields, buried in ancient military encampments, and occasionally nestled in graves, they seem both purposeful and forgotten, deliberately made, yet entirely absent from the historical record. Each dodecahedron, shares a basic design, a geometrically precise 12-faced shape, with each face containing a circular hole of varying diameter. Some are adorned with small knobs at the corners, while others remain smooth, typically made of bronze or brass. They range from 4 to 11 centimeters in diameter, and though they have been unearthed in dozens of locations across what is now France, Germany, Belgium, and the United Kingdom, no two are exactly alike. Their uniformity in concept and variance in detail suggests both a shared origin and an individual craftsmanship that hints at something more than mass-produced tools. And yet, in all the volumes of Roman literature that survive, in the meticulous records of Roman life, in the stone carvings, the legal texts, the treatises on architecture, war, philosophy, and engineering, not a single mention of these objects can be found. No Roman writer describes them. No artist depicts them. No surviving inscription hints at their function. It is as though they existed in a parallel silence, known intimately by some and intentionally concealed from others. This historical void has invited a cascade of theories, some practical, others fantastical, and all speculative. One of the more conventional suggestions is that these objects were tools of measurement, possibly used for gauging distances or angles in the fields of surveying or construction. The differing hole sizes some have proposed could have aided in optical calculations involving light or shadow. Yet such utility leaves behind little trace, and no evidence has yet surfaced to confirm such usage. Others have proposed that the dodecahedrons may have functioned as candle holders, though their open geometric design and lack of soot residue cast doubt on that idea. A more military-oriented hypothesis posits that they served as rangefinders for Roman artillery, helping soldiers calculate the trajectory of projectiles. But this too falters under scrutiny, as none of the objects have ever been found in direct association with Roman weapons or siege equipment. Perhaps the most fascinating and oddly plausible theory is that the dodecahedrons played a role in textile production. Some historians believe they may have been used in knitting, particularly in the crafting of gloves. The holes, varying in size, could have guided threads in precise configurations, and reconstructions have shown that some patterns can be replicated using them. But again, without any written record or corroborating artifacts, this theory remains little more than an educated guess. Beyond practical utility lies the realm of ritual and belief. A number of these objects have been found near ancient temples or in areas known for religious activity, prompting some scholars to speculate that they may have held ceremonial or symbolic significance. Were they instruments of divination, used like dice to cast omens or guide spiritual decisions? Could they have been part of esoteric rituals known only to certain cults or secretive societies within Roman life? The lack of uniformity in design and their absence from mainstream Roman iconography only deepens the intrigue. Even more curious is the discovery that some dodecahedrons were seemingly constructed with high-quality craftsmanship, including one rare example found in the Netherlands, made not of bronze or brass, but of gold. This suggests that at least some of these objects may have held elevated status, perhaps as symbols of prestige or sacred offerings. Why then would such richly crafted artifacts disappear so completely from the Roman historical narrative? Why would something apparently meaningful be so utterly omitted from the record? One theory holds that the dodecahedrons were not Roman at all, that they may have been adopted, borrowed, or inherited from an earlier culture now lost to time. If that is true, then their purpose may have already been obscure by the time Roman scribes began their work. Others suggest that their function was deliberately kept secret, passed only among select individuals or members of a guild or priesthood. never intended to be shared widely or recorded for posterity. Modern researchers have attempted to reconstruct and experiment with replicas of the dodecahedrons. Some have tested astronomical applications, measuring sunlight through the holes to determine seasons or track celestial movements. Others have continued the textile theory, using them as guides for weaving complex patterns. But none of these experiments have yielded conclusive answers, and the mystery remains as open and unresolvable as the hollow centers of the objects themselves. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Roman dodecahedrons is not just that we don't know what they were, but that they appear to have left no legacy. Unlike Roman engineering, law, language, or architecture, which influenced centuries of civilization, the dodecahedrons did not evolve into anything more. They were not adapted into new tools. They were not incorporated into later technologies. They did not survive as folk objects or ceremonial symbols. It is as though their purpose vanished in an instant, forgotten, irrelevant, or intentionally erased. It may be that their simplicity is the very reason for their obscurity. Small, portable, and lacking inscriptions, they are notoriously difficult to date precisely. They may have served a role so mundane that no Roman thought it worth mentioning, or, conversely, they may have belonged to a circle so guarded and exclusive that secrecy was paramount, and the knowledge of their use was never entrusted to ink or stone. Even today, as more of these objects continue to be unearthed, the mystery only deepens. With every new discovery comes the hope of a revelation, a clue that might unlock the past. And yet the answers remain elusive, just out of reach. Were they tools? Were they instruments of divination, social symbols, or something we have yet to even imagine? Perhaps they are none of these, or all of them. Perhaps they represent a category of object whose meaning lies beyond our current frameworks of thought. Whatever the truth may be, the Roman dodecahedrons stand as silent sentinels of a forgotten purpose, enigmatic artifacts that remind us of how much has been lost to time and how much more there is still to learn. They are not alone. History is filled with strange relics, objects that seem to defy logic, artifacts that do not fit, remnants of worlds we may never fully understand. And in the quiet of night, as we lie awake, pondering what once was, these mysteries speak to us, not in words but in wonder. In a world where the frontiers of scientific knowledge are constantly being pushed forward, where each new discovery dares to peel back the veil of mystery that surrounds our existence, there remain places so enigmatic, so delicately untouched by understanding, that they seem to resist every attempt at explanation. These places do not surrender their secrets easily. They exist in the quiet margins of the earth, where silence speaks louder than data, and where even the most advanced instruments fall short of capturing the fullness of what lies hidden. Not every phenomenon is meant to be understood. Not every question needs an answer. Far removed from the rush of civilization, in a sun-bleached corner of Eastern California, lies one such place. A place that sits in the heart of Death Valley National Park, shrouded in stillness and scorched by centuries of unrelenting heat. It is here, upon the barren floor of an ancient, long-vanished lake, known as Racetrack Playa, that a phenomenon unfolds with such quiet persistence, it feels more like legend than reality. Here, in this vast, desolate expanse, where the land itself seems to hold its breath, immense stones, some no larger than a loaf of bread, and others weighing as much as a grand piano, appear to move of their own accord, leaving behind sinuous trails etched into the cracked desert surface like the footprints of ghosts. What makes this occurrence so hauntingly compelling is not simply the stone's movement, but the sheer absence of any visible cause. There are no footprints surrounding them, No drag marks from ropes, no animal tracks or mechanical imprints in the dirt. And yet, time and again, these stones are found resting at the end of long, winding paths, some straight, others curved, some looping back on themselves, as if the stone had changed its mind mid-journey. In certain cases, the trail ends as abruptly as it began, as though the stone had lifted itself skyward and vanished, only to return quietly to another spot, miles or moments later. For over half a century, geologists, physicists, and those drawn to the obscure and unexplained have made pilgrimages to Racetrack Playa, determined to solve the riddle. Theories have been floated like sand on the wind. Some have suggested that powerful gusts funneling through the valley might be enough to shift the stones across the playa's smooth surface. But the weight of these rocks, some tipping the scales at more than 600 or 700 pounds, renders that theory dubious at best. Others believe that rare desert rain might briefly turn the parched surface into a slick, muddy sheet, allowing the stones to slide. But those events are so infrequent and fleeting that they, too, fail to explain the frequency and precision of the trails. As the years passed and the mystery endured, the explanations became more imaginative. Some speculated that magnetic fields or gravitational anomalies might be at play. Others wondered whether this part of the Earth was quietly participating in something extraterrestrial, touched perhaps by forces beyond comprehension. The more mystical-minded whispered of spirits or ancient energies buried deep beneath the playa's crust, stirring these stones from their slumber and guiding them across the cracked ground like silent pilgrims. Despite all speculation, one truth remained: no one had ever seen the stones move. That changed in the winter of 2014, when a patient and persistent team of researchers finally caught the phenomenon in the act. Through the use of time-lapse photography, motion sensors, and an unwavering dedication to observation, they recorded the stones gliding ever so slowly across the playa's surface, moved not by magic or mystery, but by an exquisite balance of natural elements. On rare nights, when the desert received just the right amount of rain, a shallow pool of water would form over the dry lake bed. As nighttime temperatures dropped below freezing, that water would solidify into a thin, brittle sheet of ice, encasing the rocks. Then, with the warmth of the morning sun, the ice would begin to crack and fragment into large floating panels. These panels, driven gently by light breezes, would carry the rocks across the softened surface, carving slow, graceful trails into the clay below. It was not a forceful process. It was not something one could witness with the naked eye in real time. The movement was imperceptible, centimeter by centimeter, hour by hour, day by day, until eventually the trail emerged behind the stone, unmistakable and profound. And yet, even with this long-awaited explanation, questions persist. Why do only some stones move, while others nearby remain untouched for years? Why do certain trails stretch for dozens of yards, while others end in mere inches? And perhaps most intriguingly, how long has this natural choreography played out, unseen by human eyes, beneath the scorching sun and under a canopy of desert stars? There is something deeply moving in the quiet drama of the sailing stones, something that speaks not just to our curiosity, but to our yearning for wonder in a world increasingly defined by certainty and control. These stones, indifferent to our questions, continue their slow pilgrimage across the playa, guided not by intention, but by chance and the whisper of wind on ice. They are a reminder that not all mysteries must be solved to be appreciated, that sometimes beauty lies in the not knowing. As we drift ever further into a future governed by algorithms and instant answers, it is worth remembering that some of the Earth's most enduring stories are written not in words or equations, but in the simple, silent journey of a rock across the dust. And in the stillness of night, when the world grows quiet and our minds reach out for something deeper, the sailing stones of racetrack playa remind us of how much remains unknown and how wondrous it is that such mysteries still exist, patiently waiting to be seen.